called Nigeria. We should be known for good things. We can lead Africa against vote buying.
Okay, thank you. Going forward, looking at the aspect of having a separate body like what Barrister A.B. Thomas just said, with the current realities of politicians who are in power, who would want to also use this means of vote buying to carve a niche for themselves, do you see this as having that way in terms of making that body really actualized, as A.B. Thomas said?
Well, honestly speaking, in this aspect, I want to beg to differ from the submission of my very learned senior chief, A.B. Thomas. I do not want to believe that the police is overburdened. We have specialized agencies too, like the EFCC and the rest of them, who are involved in arrest and prevention, arrest, and prosecution of crimes. But the truth is this: if there's a genuine and sincere effort by government to prosecute electoral offenders, then we'll always get it right. The problem has always been that when persons are involved in electoral offenses, it is either the politicians from the top interfere with investigation in a way that such arrests are not prosecuted to the latter.
Which is a setback.
Which is a major setback. Of course, INEC, unfortunately, has not done well over the years, because we've really not seen or come to hear of cases of convictions of persons who are involved in electoral offenses. This is because at times there is this blame shift. INEC will blame the police will blame INEC. INEC is a complainant in such a process. Of course, it is the responsibility of the police to arrest and prosecute the commission of an offense. But the police themselves, if you have cause to be close to some of them, they will tell you that they've been having this challenge of the politicians, either those in office who have taken over. For instance, a particular political party, let me say YPP, for instance, is in the helm of affairs and has won an election. And some of its members were involved in vote buying. Then, of course, you can imagine that there will be a direct interference with the police in a way that instructions are given. And such persons who have been arrested, who ought to be prosecuted, are now allowed to be off the hook. That has always been the problem. So I think what we should do, as a matter of fact, is that INEC should come out visibly and condemn some of these things that are being done. They should actually come out and state a position. We also have reports of the monitors and the observers, both foreign and local observers, who come to even report the fact that certain persons were arrested or certain offenses were observed in the course of the conduct of an election. But to what extent do we see their reports being implemented? It will appear that most of the reports by the observers and the monitors are jettisoned or dispensed with after each election.
As it seems.
Yes. I think there should be this consciousness. There is this attitude of us Nigerians, I'm sorry to say. We attend seminars, we attend symposium, and at the end of the day, the communique is issued. But it will appear that we go back to our old ways. It's like you attend a funeral where you are told about the life and tide of a man who has lived so gloriously. The man, of course, was someone you met yesterday. He was so good, he was so kind, he had touched the lives of so many persons. And you feel that, look, in a short while too, you will be like this man. But at that ceremony, everyone is sober. You begin to think of yourself. But the moment you leave that place, you go back to your old ways. And that is what is innate in man. There should be a gradual departure from the ways we are doing things. Let us begin to forge, begin to clamor for a new approach. Let us not do things in their usual way. Let us do things the way they ought to be.
Okay.
The electoral body should come out to say, look, this is our responsibility under the Electoral Act.
Okay.
The police should come out to say, look, under the law, it is our responsibility to investigate the commission of crimes. And then when persons are prosecuted, like they are now doing in offenses of rape or those sexual offenses, there is now a register for those who are involved in sexual offenses. Of course, you begin to see the consciousness and, the attitude of people changing, because nobody wants to be blacklisted.
Okay.
Because if that is done, of course, it's something that goes down into memory lane.
Thank you, Pius Oyiwo. I'll come back to you, A.B. Thomas, but quickly, just in case you're just joining us, as Ondo 2020 governorship election, and I'm your host for this segment, Philip Omo Gyupon. And don't forget that you can join this conversation using our various social media platforms. And of course, you can also listen up live streaming, and of course on 92.3 FM independent radio. This conversation is going on live on radio. And looking at what we have here, like the IGP did say, having a population security personnel of 33,783 for the police. And then we have the sister agencies also bringing about 3,500 personnel for 3,009 units and 203 wards. Do you see this as too much for the polls, in as much as you have your reactions over what Pius said?
Yes. See, we tend to militarize our voting system. 33,000, 34,000, and that 3,500, you militarize. Look, there is a situation you get to that the presence of these overpopulated uniformed men can even scare voters. Even when they are not armed, it can scare voters. We should progress to a situation where the voters will just, what stops us from voting from our houses?
So that can bring more convenience in the electoral process.
Yes, by bringing 34,000. Look at the police that is already underfunded.
But again, don't forget that we've been having issues about insecurity, having issues about political thuggery that has dominated the polity, and that could be a very good reason why this is coming up.
Where were all the lions and tigers in Benin or Edo State?
Don't you think the deployment of security personnel also helps to salvage that situation?
The truth of the matter is that when you, Pius, and myself says, our votes will not be taken away from us. No lions and tigers with AK-49 can take them. Nobody. Nobody. It is the consciousness that is important. Okay, tell me, because I will have to divert a bit to what my highly respected chairman was saying at the beginning of his statement, that there is blame shift between INEC and police. Now, if that be the case, why do we have a new agency that deals with exportation of our guests to foreign countries? It is the exigencies of the time that made us to create NAPTIP. That's a body against prostitution and exploitation of our guests and others. And this body, as my chairman would agree, is also empowered not only to arrest, but to investigate and prosecute. They don't do any other business except that. So no policeman is going to tell you it is INEC that is not making us to prosecute such offenders. If INEC has become a body that shifts its responsibilities to police, and police shifts to INEC, why not create a third body that is independently funded and responsible only for elections?
Starting with sponsoring a bill.
That's another aspect. Then when you look forward, you find that the black man must not be known for only the bad things. That was why initially I said we should also thank God that Okonjo-Iweala has become the first black person to hold the position of DG World Trade Organization. And the first female.
First female, yes.
Why can't we also become the first known country to have such a body?
Okay, thank you. I'll come back to you. As we can see on the visuals, we have the PDP deputy governorship candidate and member, House of Reps, Ikeagboju Boluga, commenting on the process after voting. And that will be joining Kingsley Uchegbu on that. Good morning, Kingsley.
You've exercised your franchise as deputy governorship candidate of the PDP. How would you describe the process so far?
It has been peaceful. Everything has gone smoothly so far, and we don't expect any problems.
Okay, so we overheard what about the issue of the candidates in your unit and the reports we get around?
It's been functioning.
What of other areas?
The report, I've only heard reports of malfunctioning in one unit, and that they want to replace it. And I'm very sure that there's no problem with that. There's never been, I've not had any major complaints about card reader in any of the units, except one instance. I'm very sure it's been attended to.
There's not been any issue of violence?
Violence? No, you can see for yourself. Everybody's.
What about pre-electoral violence?
We do not have such incidents in our area. I'm not saying it won't happen, but we pray it doesn't happen. So far, it's been very peaceful.
Sir, as a prime actor in this election, so far so good. Are you optimistic with on the outcome of the results?
Of course, it's going to be victory for PDP in this election. We're confident because we've been able to get our message across to the electorate. We've been able to preach responsible government. We've been able to let them know that PDP offers viable, responsible, fit-for-purpose government. There's no way our people will allow a government of APC headed by Arakuni Akeredolu to continue. The rejection is palpable. You can feel it, you can sense it. And I think the people are resolute in rejecting a non-performing government. Government that has abandoned its responsibility to the people. So I think by the grace of God, we're going to be victorious. And that will end the bad government in Ondo State.
Finally, sir, people have been talking about vote buying, that the issues are the APC are bringing to the table this election, that they want to use money to change the minds of the people. What would be your reaction to that?
There is a limit. If our people reach their tolerance limit, and they're not going to buy or accept anybody buying their vote. They understand what is at stake. This is the time to reject irresponsible leadership, irresponsible government, and embrace a government that is going to meet the needs of the people. A government that has a shared agenda with the people. So there's no doubt about
optimism. Yes. What about if things turn the other way?
If things turn the other way, that's the verdict of the people. As long as it's not predicated on falsification, fraud, or massive vote buying that is visible, that is we have evidence for. So there's no choice. If you lose election, you lose election, and ultimately it is the people that take decision whether they vote for you or not. You can say everything's been peaceful so far, and we genuinely believe it should be peaceful all through.
All right. Thank you.
That was Ikengboju Boluga really commenting on the electoral process, and what's the striking quality there, he said, is that substantially the process has been peaceful, and can we say there's a pullout in this electoral process?
Well, there are those in the field, and they are saying that the process has been okay, it has been peaceful. That, like I said, is expected.
Okay.
Because, of course, like I started when I commenced the discussion here today, that there has been this consciousness on the parts of the electorate to come out and then, of course, express their, to cast their votes and then, of course, to vote in the candidate of their choice. From the interview just now, you will observe that every person is optimistic of success or victory.
Positive outcome.
Yes.
Okay.
And of course, there has been no substantial
incidents of
violence in the elections.
Okay.
And it is our expectation that all this should continue.
Yeah, okay. Political pundits have always said, A.B. Thomas, that, in our history, substantially, we've always been having substantially peaceful process. But in terms of collation, in terms of collection and announcing of results, that becomes a very intriguing process where anything could happen. Can we take that as a fact?
That is true. Very true. Particularly in situations where the constitution of the country.
Okay, I think I'll come back to you on that. As we can see, we're going to be bringing you a clip on the former governor of Ondo State, Dr. Olusegun Mimiko, who just voted in his unit, 20B, Ward 7, Ondo Town.
So, sir, how will you want to view the process so far?
Well, on the face of it, it looks quiet and at least this location, I can only talk authoritatively, authentically about this location. It looks peaceful. Before I got here, there were a few incidents of people trying to purchase votes, and I understand it's been rectified now. It looks peaceful on the face of it. But we need to get a report from that location before I can make any meaningful comment.
So how will you want to assess the turnout?
No, the turnout looks impressive. Yeah, this location. I can speak authentically for this location. This looks very impressive to me. Especially when you view it from the backdrop of all the threat, all the pre-election brigandage that gave us some trepidation about voter turnout. But I think this place, the turnout is decent. It looks okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, former governor of Ondo State, Dr. Olusegun Mimiko, who just voted in Unit 20B, Ward 7, Ondo Town. Again, substantially peaceful in that ward.
You see, your question has to do with not the voting process itself, but collation and the actual results.
Yes.
When people like Mimiko, Olusegun, comes into play, ordinarily, because if you have traveled in the Sunshine State, Ondo, in extenso, the way I've done, I have been to almost the entire 70 local government councils in Ondo State, although I'm from Ondo State.
The entire 17, but we have 18, so one is left out.
Yes, there's no way I could have been to 18. If I've scored 17 over 18, I think I should. You should give me a pass mark.
All right, so
now you find that people like that should be involved in credible processes that will lead to collation. But you see, in Nigeria, people like late Agagu, who was the predecessor to Mimiko, these were politicians who understood the workings of the rigging process. You have to follow the ballot boxes. After the reading out of the results, not everybody, but the agents of the political parties should be able to transmit what has been read out. I recorded with my phone what was counted and I transmitted to relevant bodies. If every person who is a stakeholder in the election is able to do this, the idea of having discrepancies between the actual votes counted and the votes eventually announced between the unit polls, the local government, the wards, and local government and state level, the discrepancies will be reduced. The point is, most people vote, and the next thing is a vote in there, Omakawe. If you say Omakawe, then your vote becomes irrelevant. That was what happened in Edo State. People became very conscious that, look, I cannot stay here, vote, and my vote become irrelevant. I am expecting such situation in Sunshine State, Ondo State.
Okay.
Because they are very politically educated. They are not going to tolerate any discrepancy between what they have voted and what the ultimate result will be.
Okay.
So I pray that the same sincerity, the same professionalism, the same attitude that INEC displayed in the elections will be carried over to the elections holding today in Ondo State.
Okay.
Because when the polling, the polls, the casting of ballots are so sincere, it reduces the possibility of malfeasance, the possibility of violence after election.
Okay.
And I think we have graduated to such a level that we should now be able to follow our votes cast to the announcement at the unit, to the ward, we should be able to get these things right.
Okay, thank you. Let's get a comment, Pius Oyiwo, in terms of the security deployment and if that in any way could affect the authenticity of the process.
Well, like the Chief Thomas mentioned about the deployment of security personnel, 33,000 for the police and other sister agencies having such a number. I see it as, like he said, as actually intimidating the voters.
Okay, thank you. I'll come back to you, Pius Oyiwo. As you can see on the visuals from Omowa Jonah, we have PDP candidate Itayo Jegede and his wife just voted at the St. Brendan's Primary School, Ward 2, Unit 9 in Akure South local government area. Let's get this. Okay, so as you can see, I think there's much progress as we have that feed in Ward 2, Unit 9 in Akure South local government area. Now, let's look at what that brings on board, like what you were saying. You had the floor.
Yes, that the presence of security personnel in our electoral process in such an intimidating number is something that we really need to look at very critically now. Apart from the fact that it also intimidates voters, I see it as a practice that is unsustainable because for now we are having the Edo, the Ondo, and some other states whose elections are staggered. They may be able to use these numbers. But when we come to the general election, as it affects elections being conducted across boards, across the different states of the Federation the same day.
Yes, we could have that challenge.
We may not be able to sustain this practice. Then we'll go back to the old days. So I sincerely believe that the fact that it worked in Edo, or we believe that, security personnel were so active in Edo and now in Ondo, the IG will not come out to make such pronouncements in other states too, because they do not have the personnel to go around these states for the purposes of monitoring elections.
Okay.
So let us begin to have a new thinking.
Okay, before we get to that new thinking,
yes.
Don't you think what has happened so far in terms of security deployment, if we take a retrospect on the build-up to this poll today in Ondo State, there were issues about thuggery, issues about destruction of property. Don't you think that again could be the reason why the security deployment could also tackle that angle?
I do not think that, sincerely.
Really?
I do not think that. And if that is the thinking of the security experts, then of course they are not doing the right thing.
Okay, what's the new thinking?
The thinking should be that, first of all, there should be this consciousness. Irrespective of the thuggery that we may experience during the build-up to the election. On the day of the election itself, the actual voting day, the presence of sparse security personnel in the different polling units would, of course, still achieve the results that we are seeing and getting now. Like I said, let us not believe in a process that we know we cannot sustain. In every other state too, we will begin to experience things like this. In Kogi State, Kogi did the election before Edo. There were also presence of security personnel. But of course, you saw what happened in Kogi State. So let us begin to have, like Chief said, the consciousness of persons to defend their votes. If we are so many in an electoral process, like you saw the Itayo Jegede voting, and you saw the crowd there.
Yes.
We saw this man too, Akete, voting in Owo. You saw the crowd there too. We also saw Mimiko going to cast his vote. We saw the crowd there. I sincerely believe that these persons who are who are architects of thuggery and violence will not be able to overrun these persons if they sincerely stand to say they want to defend their votes.
Okay. Well, thank you. He just raised the point. We look at the general elections, for instance, we may not have this number of security.
While adopting the views of my learned chairman as mine, There is no way you can sustain 33, 34,000 in general election.
No.
For all states.
It's a far cry from what the current realities show.
There is a program the federal government is saying they want to do. I'm not so much interested in all these things. That says 774 people will be employed in the 774 local governments. That is 774,000. If you are to do that arithmetically, geographically, and in a sincere government, that should give each local government 1,000 personnel.
Yes.
That should give.
In right thinking.
Because this is where a situation of 2 plus 2 becomes 8. If you do that, it should give every local government 1,000 personnel. And that will reduce unemployment.
Okay, so you welcome that development?
That's why I said I adopt what my chairman said as mine. But the issue is this. What is the duty of some underfunded agencies that have become moribund, like NOA, National Orientation Agency? Are these bodies not supposed to sensitize the public? Don't forget, I said earlier on, that when the people decide to vote, no AK-49 can take away their ballot papers. I am telling you, believe me. You see this issue of thuggery, irregularities in votes counted. They only happen when, for instance, in a polling unit of 500, only 200 people come out to vote.
Okay, thank you. I'll come back to you. From Kingsley Uchebo, we have a member representing Okitupupa 1 constituency, Akinrogunde, Akintomide, commenting after voting in Unit 7, Ijodo.
Representing the very good people of Okitupupa constituency 1 in Ondo State House of Assembly.
You just searched the budget.
Yes.
How would you describe the process?
Well, as you can see, it is clear, it's crystal clear that there's normalcy here, there's peace, and the process is going on unhindered. So I think it is part of the orientation provided for our people towards this election to ensure success. So I think everything has been normal.
So, how is the compliance to COVID-19 protocols?
Well, as you can see, everybody is with their mask to ensure that to reduce transmission and as well maintain distance among the voters. Yeah.
So what's your expectation?
Well, my expectation is not far-fetched. That everybody is happy that they have been able to exercise their right as determining in the course of determining who pilot the affairs of their state for the next 4 years. Everybody is happy and it's free. The atmosphere is conducive and everybody is elated, making sure that we do the needful. Yeah. Thank you.
A member representing Okitupupa 1 constituency, Akinrogunde Akintomide, commenting after voting in Unit 7, Ijodo. Again, we still have a positive comment on that.
Now, we are receiving positive comments.
Yeah.
These are from people in different constituencies, in different local government councils, as we have been seeing from TV. There is no way the police can be omnipresent and omniscient. They can't be everywhere. But if the people who are going to vote in their different local governments or wards or units are determined to defend their votes, the votes will count. Let me tell you something that is very common knowledge, but we don't practice. I gave you an example. If a polling unit has a number of 500 and only 200 comes out to vote, as we have 17 political parties contesting in Ondo State.
Okay.
How do you expect there not to be violence or vote rigging? It will happen.
Because you don't have a sizable population.
You don't have a sizable population of people coming out. But if you have 500 people in a polling unit and 400 turns out,
that's huge.
How are you going to do that? The people you are calling lions and tigers in quotes, they are not omnipotent and omnipresent. They are human beings. They will go on land. They don't come from Holy Ghost or somewhere.
Okay, but the voting population in Ondo State, for instance, has from 2011 till date has only improved from like 30 to 35%, and so which is still a far cry.
What I am saying is not the figures INEC gives you. It is the actual figures of those who come out to vote.
Okay.
I mentioned National Orientation Agency just now. What are they doing? Their office in Benin, the last time I passed through the office, their roof is gone. These are the agencies Babangida used in mobilizing people. We ought to use such agencies to mobilize people different from INEC. You see, I keep on talking about bodies different from INEC and police.
A separate body entirely.
Separate bodies
that will be given
entirely.
that special responsibility.
Yes. If we do this, it has a multiplying effect. What? One, we create jobs for those agencies.
Yeah.
Two, we create awareness among the populace. Three, we lessen the burden on the police. Four, we lessen the burden on INEC. There are specialized bodies handling these issues. You need to come to court and see NAPTIP lawyers prosecuting those who sponsor the people who are removed from states to other areas. They don't do another job. They focus on that NAPTIP law or act that prohibits trafficking on human beings. That is just a job. And I can tell you, from my 34 years experience in practice, I'm very impressed with what they are doing. Why not create such specialized bodies and see if there will be no change?
Okay, thank you.
NAPTIP, for instance, is not tied to any political party. Police will obey the political party in power.
Okay.
And you expect police to be neutral. So if they were neutral in Edo, we were just lucky. And we should also be hopeful that our luck will take us to
yes,
Ondo.
the ripple effect of that will happen again.
In Ondo State.
Okay, well, let's stretch the conversation back to what transpired this morning, where a boat carrying some INEC officials and materials capsized around Ilaje local government area. We could see the river, we could see the current of those waves, which really portends danger, in terms of that. What do you make of that? Because some local government or some wards who could be affected by that whole incident. What do you make of that incident?
Well, sincerely speaking, I am taken aback by what I saw and heard about the boats capsizing carrying electoral materials. INEC has a blame in this whole thing. I expected that with having delineated that area as a voting constituency, there ought to have been adequate arrangements.
Being that it's a riverine area.
Yes, they should have made adequate arrangements for this. The persons carrying materials to such an area already knew before now that they were going to navigate through the river to get to where they are going to. And of course, persons live in that area. I expect also that there ought to be security presence in such an area too. And how do you do this? I expect that they should have engaged the services of helicopters
Okay.
to take voting materials to this place.
Not